Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to the Mental Health Channel with Prof.Danesh. Have you heard about the total solar eclipse happening on April 8th, 2024 in North America? Are you aware of the effects of this eclipse on your mental health? Did you know that no matter where you are in the world, an eclipse can have an impact on your emotions and psyche? It's essential to be aware that this eclipse isn't limited to a specific geographic area. It's just that some people may sense its darkness while others may not. Because an eclipse isn't just about the apparent darkness of the sun, sometimes an eclipse occurs both externally and internally within us, creating a massive eclipse that goes beyond what the eye can see. In this video, we'll talk about two types of eclipses: astronomical eclipses and internal eclipses. The first type is the eclipse that happens in the cosmos. What is this eclipse, and what symbolism does it hold in different cultures? Let's explore. Continuing on, we mention internal eclipses and how one can prevent the harmful effects of an eclipse. Professor Danesh, the founder of Global Civilization Health, has picked a story from a selected individual, chosen one, about an eclipse that occurred in his life. They share with us how this person describes this eclipse and leaves it behind. When the moon positions itself between the sun and the earth, casting its shadow on the earth, we call this phenomenon an eclipse. This natural event is observable worldwide, and on the 8th of April 2024, one of these will occur. It happens when the Earth, Moon, and Sun align, creating conditions resembling a sunset in the middle of the day. Eclipses can impact individuals' emotions and psychology, but these effects are highly varied and depend on the person, culture, beliefs, and personal experiences. Some individuals may feel fear, excitement, or even admiration towards this natural phenomenon. Others may view this event as an opportunity for introspection and inner reflection. This untimely silence of the sun during a solar eclipse, although brief and temporary, has instilled fear in humanity since ancient times, with people believing that the sun might disappear during this obscuration. Throughout history, this phenomenon has always captured the attention of diverse nations and cultures. Ancient civilizations often considered a solar eclipse as a grim event and held superstitious beliefs about it. For instance, the Chinese believed that a dragon was swallowing the sun during an eclipse. In many cultures, a solar eclipse was perceived as a celestial calamity. Some people in India used to immerse themselves neck-deep in water during a solar eclipse, believing that they were helping the sun and moon defend themselves against the dragon. Some believed that a dragon or a monster of darkness would swallow the sun. This interpretation evolved over time into superstitions and then religious beliefs, as it is said that in the end times, what will occur are wars, famine, and eclipses, which they considered as warning signs for humanity. They would play drums and trumpets, or sing religious chants to break this curse or frighten the dark creature and defeat it. Before the eclipse, they would conduct religious ceremonies in an attempt to prevent the dragon from devouring the sun. Following these ceremonies and the solar eclipse, which lasted less than 10 minutes during the reverse motion of the eclipse, they would offer sacrifices to ward off the dark demon from swallowing the sun. Some would fast and rush to churches to confess their sins for worship and perform specific rituals. During a solar eclipse, no creature was allowed to drink or eat, and by creating noises with empty vessels, they sought to drive away evil spirits. The sun has always held a special place and has been a symbol of warmth, light, and life. Among flowers and plants, the blue lotus and sunflower, as well as palm, cypress, and pine trees, represent the sun. Fire is one of its elements, while red and yellow are its colors, and gold is attributed to the sun from metals. Along the path of spiritual growth, the spiritual awakening is symbolized by the sun, representing spiritual awakening and guidance. However, sometimes an eclipse occurs within ourselves, times when the guiding light does not shine into our hearts. This may be when we have lost a guiding and illuminating center within ourselves and lost our way, and our inner sun has become dark and obscured. But don't worry, just as the sun shines again after an eclipse, our inner sun can also shine again. We can hope for the recovery of light and hope in dark times. Great men and women have lived on this earthly sphere whose thoughts and works have had a profound impact on the bodies, souls, and minds of humans from ancient times to the present day. The ideas of these great figures can be likened to a lamp that shows us the way, a mystical journey leading to the truth. Shams and Rumi are two mystics, two true chosen ones, whose names are unfamiliar to none, and they encountered each other on the path to knowledge, two of these great and select individuals. Now allow me to share an interesting point with you at the outset. The name Shams, in Persian, means sun. With this in mind, let's hear the fascinating story of the life of Shams. Shams is a true select among Iranian Muslim mystics. From a young age, he displayed noble and ascetic qualities and showed no interest in games and pastimes that children his age engaged in. He was among the chosen few who delved into exploration, scholarship, and mathematics and embraced mysticism in his youth. He shunned religious differences. Although Shams loved people, he did not socialize with them and would say, "I have no business with these common folks in this realm of knowledge. I have not come for them." He was well aware of his position and status, attempting to conceal his fame and delve into his own mysteries behind the veil. He never stayed permanently anywhere, and during his travels to various cities, if the city had a school, he would dedicate some time to teach there without accepting any money for these teachings. In his 60s, Shams sought someone worthy of his teachings. Consequently, he traveled to Konya, where he was asked why he had come to the city. He replied, "I have come to see one of the scholars." Shams had dreamt that he was compelled to perform a task and had a mission to spend some time in the company of a scholar in Konya. Therefore, he went to Konya to fulfill his mission and deemed the 40-year-old Rumi worthy of his knowledge gem and met with Rumi. The strong and warm character of Shams transformed Rumi, making him into a different person. Rumi experienced practical wisdom in a different way in the presence of Shams' Tabrizi and became enamored with this spiritual journey. Rumi, who was a mature individual and a respected speaker, abandoned preaching and public speaking, spending hours and days with Shams. Shams taught Rumi, compelling him to silence and attempting to strip Rumi, who was adorned with the outward aspects of religion, of himself, and enrich his inner being. Through the practice of silence, which is one of the mystical stages of gnosis, the mystic reaches a new stage of gnosis. This influence caused those around Rumi to suffer and harbor resentment towards Shams. From ordinary people to religious scholars, and even Rumi's associates and relatives, they could not tolerate his transformed state. In their view, Rumi's actions were not fitting for a revered and renowned religious scholar. The envy of those around Rumi led to Shams leaving Konya after a year and a half of companionship and friendship with Rumi without informing him and heading to an unknown land. With Shams' departure, Rumi became distraught and agitated, seeking seclusion and cutting off his interactions with his associates. Rumi did not even meet with members of his own family. Rumi is like a moon with the sun to name, Shams shining in his life. Storytellers have narrated tales of the meeting between Shams and Rumi, but allow me to relay what happened afterward and where it culminated after hearing Prof.Danesh's discourse on the phenomenon of solar eclipses.
In the name of the Lord of Life and Wisdom, the phenomenon of a solar eclipse in the world of science is a purely astronomical and scientific process, but in Persian literature, it holds a symbolic and profound meaning. Today, I will shed light on one of its mysteries for you. As you know, in Persian poetry, the sun represents power and greatness, beauty and radiance, height, wrath, determination, usefulness, and speed. Many human perceptions and beliefs about the sun have been reflected in poetry and by poets. The greatest peak of literature in Iran and the world is the figure of Jalal ad-Din Muhammad Balkhi, known as Rumi, whose character is like a tall cypress tree, indebted to his growth to the sun, which, as its name suggests, is Shams Tabrizi. Just as sun worship is seen in mythology, Rumi also delves into sun worship and doesn't consider Shams as a mythological god, but instead, through annihilation in Shams, he has reached self-discovery in the process of self-awareness. This concept is also interpretable with Carl Gustav Jung psychology, in which Shams is seen as an excuse for Rumi to reach God. Of course, this exaggerated view that Shams occupies the position of God in Rumi's perspective is to some extent questionable. However, what is clear is that Shams is a center of illumination, guidance, and attraction for Rumi. Therefore, when Shams suddenly disappears from Rumi's sight and conceals his light like an eclipse from Rumi's earthly sphere, it is described in Persian literature in a very interesting way. In Rumi's poetry, we have numerous verses on the separation from Shams Tabrizi. In this ghazal by Rumi, the poet expresses the pain of separation from Shams Tabrizi. I have fallen into distress from the separation of the religion of Shams. He is the Messiah of the era, and the pain of my eyes is without remedy, even though the pain of his love is actually the comfort of my soul. If my soul's blood were to shed, it is he who is worth 100 sacrifices.
Continuing the poem, Rumi describes Shams as the lion of truth, likening him to a lion which has no equal in courage, is valiant, and is the essence that emerges from non-existence, the absolute, blissful spirit, and one of the chosen ones. It is noteworthy that just as in this ghazal Shams holds a special place for Rumi, a superhuman has the same position in the opinion of Shams.
This is how we can divide an eclipse into two chapters, the eclipse and the solar eclipse. Solar eclipses, which are these eclipses, are events that occur on a worldly level, and occasionally people gather in specific areas to witness these solar eclipses. They observe this eclipse while, from another perspective, the eclipse is internal. This internal eclipse, in the view of Rumi, is the sudden disappearance of Shams Tabrizi. Just as in a solar eclipse, the world unexpectedly darkens. Unlike usual, in the internal eclipse, the world darkens suddenly for Rumi when Shams departs.
In this relationship between Rumi and Shams, we witness the sun within the sun in the eclipse. However, sometimes we are also witnesses of an eclipse within the eclipse, a very disturbing and worrying concept of the disappearance of the illuminating sun and the guiding light from our existence through this eclipse within the eclipse. We continue the story. Those close to Rumi, unable to endure his state, regretted their behavior towards Shams and went after him, eventually finding him at dinner. Shams respectfully and joyfully returned to Konya. It seems that Shams Tabrizi's aim in distancing himself was to bring Rumi to a stage of self-sufficiency, so that in this way he could enliven the sun within Rumi. The joy of meeting Shams was not long-lasting for Rumi, as once again the envious and spiteful behaviors of those around him began. They harassed Shams, and upon witnessing these behaviors, Shams Tabrizi decided to leave Konya without any trace. Salahaddin, a devout man, calmed Rumi's restlessness and turmoil which had consumed him after Shams' departure. Rumi's companionship with Salahaddin paved the way for the creation of the Rumi, one of the greatest treasures of Iranian mystical literature. I hope you pass through this eclipse smoothly and safely, and may this eclipse serve as a reminder and a wake-up call for our spiritual awakening. Let us remember that sometimes the sun within us is eclipsed, and the light of guidance does not reach our hearts. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the video. We look forward to your beautiful views in the upcoming videos. May God bring about the best outcome. May you be content and successful.